Welcome, everyone, to meeting number 5,314. It's really good to see all of you here. I think we have a few more than last week, which makes me feel better. And I'd like to welcome also all the guests. If anybody has a guest, can you please bring them up to the microphone and introduce them, and bring your guest with you, if you would, please. While Fernando's coming up, I'll remind you to wear your masks, everyone. If you're not eating or drinking, please wear masks. And also, let's all watch Fernando at the microphone and how far away he is from the mic, and you can use that as an example of what to do. I'm sure Fernando's going to get it right.
Yes, President. It's hard to say. Steve Borkenhagen. This is my guest, is Tina Highland, and she is visiting here from a molecular devices business, and she's interested in knowing what we do here. So, Tina Highland.
Welcome, Tina.
Welcome, Tina. I was at Molecular Devices for a while.
Get there tighter into the microphone, if you would.
Okay, President Steve, I'm Arthur Jew. My guest today is Rosario Monge. She's been working as the Senior Director of Sponsorship and Grants Engagements for Silicon Valley Bank in the marketing department.
Welcome, Rosario. Welcome. Mike Bohr.
President Steve, I am back with Mike Anning, owner of Mosaic Mortgage Group, and my downtown friend.
Mike and Mike, welcome again. Thanks, Mike Anning.
Hello, President Steve. It's Catherine Tompkison. My guest today is Robert Davis. He's with San Jose State University Veterans Resource Center. He's a counselor there.
Fabulous. Welcome, and please come visit us in the future, too.
Good afternoon, President Steve. I am Tu Do, and my guest today is Mr. Todd Su. Todd is an entrepreneur and a philanthropist. He is the president and CEO of Advantage Homes and of Realty World Todd Su & Co. He specializes in modular housing, hotel, and real estate. And Todd serves on the board of directors of several trade associations, and he is a board member of VN Help, the nonprofit organization that I manage. Please welcome Todd.
Welcome. Jen, hold on just a moment. Mike Damberger, I've got definite echoing that I'm hearing up here. I don't know if everyone in the room hears it, but I do. So go ahead, Jen.
Good afternoon, President Steve. My name is Jennifer Simmons, and I'd like to introduce my guest, my son, Joshua Maley. He is a new volunteer with Rotary. He's going to come on Wednesdays because he's taking a gap year between high school and college. And he'd like to spend his Wednesdays volunteering with us with whatever we need during the meetings.
Wow. Thank you, Jen. Welcome, Joshua. Oh, I guess I'll just leave that down unless Matt wants to fix it for me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adolfo, President Steve. So my guest today, I just brought people from moral support. I'm becoming a full blue badge today. So Tina, my wife, and my friend Carlos, he was our ex-General Consul of Mexico a few years ago. Thank you.
Thanks, Adolfo. And I want to give a special shout out today to my dear friend Vic Corsilia. Vic is one of our members, and I think you all know his daughter Taryn is my sweetie pie, but Vic had an accident and broke his back a couple months ago. And interesting that Mike Anning is here today. Mike kind of saved Vic. Vic fell down and broke his back and was laying in the garden, and Mike, who lives a few doors down, was walking by. So Mike Anning, why don't you stand up and take a round of applause, and also all of you for Vic Corsilia. Good to have you back, Vic. Would our guests from Pune please come up to the microphone? A small but enthusiastic crowd. So it's my pleasure to introduce Makaran Phadke and Yogeshri Phadke. They are from Pune Metro in India, and we're going to exchange flags. But first, Makaran's going to speak for a moment.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here. Both Yogeshri and I bring our greetings. We are from Rotary Club of Pune Metro, part of District 3131. We have been Rotarians for last 10 years, and I was the president in the Rotary year 2021. We are a club a little smaller than you guys. We are about 80 members, but growing. So we hope to get to somewhere near where you guys are in near future. Rotary Club of Pune Metro celebrated its 25th year last year. And last year was a particularly good year for us in terms of the number of projects we did. We did about 4 global grants, the biggest one of them being a village upliftment global grant, where we're working with a tribal village, which is about 100 kilometers southeast of Pune. And we're trying to bring employment, create employment there, teach them modern agriculture practices, and most of all, do water conservation. That area receives 3,000 millimeters of rain, but all in 4 months, and all that water washes away. So trying to create structures which will enable water storage, and then they could take multiple crops. I have a short video that I'm going to circulate the link to. Maybe you guys can look at it later. So it's great to be here. Great to be here because Pune and San Jose are also sister cities. So thank you very much, President Steve, for giving us this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yes, Tom Bondi. We did it already, but thank you for the friendly reminder, Tom. We're so damn organized, we did it in advance. I was telling Makaran, hopefully the next time I see him, we'll be in Pune. Like many of you, I've always wanted to go visit India. And if any of you travel, you probably know that there are Rotarians everywhere in the world, and they will take incredible care of you if you just let them know that you're coming. So I would encourage all of you to do that when you travel. Leslie, did you want to come up and do your usual Zoom count? And while Leslie's doing that, Matt Bell, you want to come up and we'll talk about membership? So what we agreed we'd start doing is, Leslie, if you struggle with it, don't worry, but we're going to announce every week how many people we have on Zoom, just to give everyone a sense for what kind of attendance that we're getting. And also, Leslie and I talked before today's meeting. I am very curious about people's attitudes in the club about coming to meetings. So we're going to send out a poll this week. I'd appreciate it if you would all answer about whether you're coming in person, whether you're doing Zoom, whether you're watching on YouTube, or whether you just don't come because of me. So whatever that might be, these are all reasonable possibilities. Leslie, go ahead.
We have 46 people joining us on Zoom, so nice turnout.
Wonderful. Thanks, Leslie. With that, Matt Bell.
Thank you, President Steve. I'm going to be up here about monthly, just talking about membership and reminding you all about the importance of recruiting new members. You might recall earlier at the beginning of the year, we reached out and we've created a new program called Stand Up for Rotary, where we're asking members to stand up and commit to recruiting at least one new member for Rotary this year, in this Rotary year. Want you to know that there's still plenty of wristbands, as Steve just showed you. Is it up on the screen? One of these lovely wristbands, if you're willing to stand up and commit to it. If you are, please come see me after the meeting and we'll get your wristband and make sure you're noted as one of about 75 Rotarians who've committed to do so thus far. Little update on our progress for this year. We have 6 new members confirmed with 3 more applications pending. And I'd just like to take a moment right now to recognize those who have sponsored a new Rotarian. So, and if you're here, just give a wave or stand up. Thank you. So Judge Art Weisbrod, our President Steve Borkenhagen, Elizabeth Monley, let's see, Mike Conniff, Tom Bondi, I know Tom's here, Todd Langton, And then some of the most recent applications, Joe Quillisi, Debbie Caminetti, and Karen Lowe Fox. So just how about a round of applause for those people who've already come through. I want to take another minute to talk about renewals. Right now, many of us have we've received our membership renewal and have responded to it. There are a good number of Rotarians who have not yet done so. So I encourage you just to shout out for Leslie and the staff. Please do, if you're planning to renew, and we hope that you are, renew as soon as you can. If you're having a financial challenge in any way, whether it's due to COVID or anything else, and that's inhibiting your ability to do that, please do reach out to Leslie in the office as well. We have ways and resources to help you with that. So please don't hesitate to reach out if there's an issue there. Financial challenges should not be a reason to not be a member of Rotary, and we're committed to that. So thank you for that, and I think we might have some blue badges to hand out here.
Before we do our blue badges, a reminder that as a club, roughly speaking, we need a new member every week just to maintain equilibrium in the number of members that we have, which is around 450. So those of you with the wristbands, keep on trucking, and if you don't have a wristband yet, again, get one from Matt or me. It's a simple commitment, one person in a year. There's really nothing to it. So with that, can our blue badgers come up? That's Debbie Caminiti, Irma Garcia, Adolfo Gomez, and Sheila McIntyre. Come on up.
I know that.
That's good. Round of applause for the Blue Badgers, please. And thanks to Matt Bell. Chairing the membership committee and the program committee are probably the two heaviest lifts in the club. They probably do more work than the president. So Matt, thank you as always. Catherine Tompkison, come on up. Catherine's here. She was here a minute ago.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Dave, can you hear me? Good. I'm here on behalf of my co-chair, Dave Silva, on the Military Care Committee and the rest of our committee members to talk a little bit about National Day of Service and something that we're doing with the Military Care Committee, whose mission is to serve both active service people and veterans. I should probably take this off. We all know that we celebrated the 20th anniversary of 9/11. That was our National Day of Service. And as part of that continuing effort, we are doing a letter writing campaign to active service folks. So after the meeting, we'll have cards, we will have instructions, and if you write a very short note, 2-3 sentences, you'll get a treat as a reward. And these will go into care packages that get shipped overseas to service people in conflict zones. So we're putting together packages to go out during the holidays. In addition, our committee does service at the VA hospital in Palo Alto, at the Defenders Lodge. These are outpatient veterans, and we're putting together care packages for them as well. We hope you will consider joining the Rotary entry at the Veterans Day Parade in downtown San Jose on November 11th. And we are working on a historic vehicle, hopefully bill, that will have all of us on board, not walking, but riding in the parade. And that's it. So hopefully we'll see some of you out there after the meeting to write a little note for us. Thank you.
Next up, To Do. To, are you here? Come on up. Just a reminder that the real work of our club happens at the committee level. These are the people who are doing the heavy lifting day in, day out. So please, when they ask you for help, please help them. And also, if you aren't already a member of a committee or two, please do so. You can come see me personally if you're not sure which one to join. I'll give you some advice. With that, too.
Good afternoon. Well, Mr. Roy Russell, let's see, let me get first slide. If you recognize this Mr. Roy Russell in the picture, Roy Russell passed away in January of this year. He was a long-time Rotarian and a Vietnam veteran. Roy is dearly missed by his families and friends. Since I joined this Rotary Club in 2008, Roy always greeted me as M2, which means little sister too, even though I'm not that young, but I'm much younger than he was. And I responded to him as Anh Roy, which means big brother Roy. Vietnam Help, the nonprofit organization that I manage, and the International Service Committee of this club are co-funding a school construction project in Vietnam to honor Roy's legacy. VN Help contributes $20,000 for this project, and the committee has committed to contribute at least an equal amount. We wish to raise even more than this minimum budget to be able to build a larger school to serve about 200 elementary students. We would like to invite you to the annual International Feast on Friday, October 1st from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Warden House. This year's event is very special because in addition to the international dishes provided by the committee members, there will be lots of fresh lobster from Maine brought to us by Roy's daughter, Miss Sloan Russell, and an incredible musical performance by a Vietnamese Emmy Award winner who will play Vietnamese traditional instruments. So please join us for an evening of friendship, delicious food, and cultural entertainment, and best of all, for our own Roy Russell. If you'd like to attend, please register on the Rotary website, or you can contact the office for assistance. Only $60 per person, and that includes a raffle ticket. If you are unable to attend but would like to contribute to this project, please go to the Vietnam Help website and click on the donate button. I hope to see many of you at this very fun and meaningful event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, too. Any of you who knew Roy Russell know this was an incredible guy. This is an opportunity for us as a group to honor him. So please dig deep, invite your friends, spend a little money, have some fun, and meet some great people. Next up is Gay Crawford.
I have a video that's about 1:50. If you would roll that video, then I'll tell you a little bit more about it. And thanks to Sean O'Kane.
For almost 30 years, Mother's Day holds a special joy for nearly 600 young cancer patients and their families fighting cancer. Introduced in 1989, Courageous Kids Day was conceived by the American Cancer Society as a family event and a day to have fun together, enjoying rides, lunch, along with arts, crafts, and games. Children and their families come from all over California to participate in the American Cancer Society's Courageous Kids Day at California's Great America Amusement Park in Santa Clara. The day, referred to as a day away from cancer, for these young cancer patients is a unique partnership between the American Cancer Society and Great America, who has been the presenting sponsor since the beginning 30 years ago. It's an extra special fun-packed day for the courageous kids and their families, allowing them to forget some of that stress and have fun together. It's more than just a fun day out in the park. It provides emotional escape from the everyday trials of what a family goes through when they have a child with cancer. A day when these patients can just be kids. Their brothers and sisters can enjoy the time with their siblings outside of a hospital room, and parents can watch their kids have fun without worry. Funds raised not only provide this very special day to the courageous kids and their family, but also supports pediatric cancer research. Heroes come in all sizes. How can you help? You can sign up today to become a committee member, a volunteer for the day, or event sponsor. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. Help us find you today with the American Cancer Society and the Courageous Kids.
As the founder of this event, and it's actually been 32 years, I'm just so proud and thankful to Sean for the video, and of course Brian Adams, who actually introduced this to Rotary when he was president, 5 or 6 years ago. And we have had maybe 10 to 20 volunteers out at Great America every Mother's Day. There are some changes. We didn't do Mother's Day, and thank you, Fernando, you helped us last year, but there was no Courageous Kids Day. So it will be live this year, October 16th, which is a Saturday. The other changes, Great America has invited us to their new venue. It's a wonderful picnic grove right across from Levi Stadium. And with that, we were able to do something called Construction versus Cancer, and able to raise about $100,000 thanks to people, well, like Mike Block and many others in the construction industry, who will be bringing out excavators and fun things for the kids to climb on. So the theme has changed, the location has changed, the date has changed, and of course, the fundraising this year has been tough, but it's been good. So October 16th, if you're not doing anything on that Saturday, from about 10 to 3, or if you want to do registration, you come a little earlier. Many of our Rotarians have helped with that. And you can help take pictures of these families. Sometimes it's the only photograph they have of their entire family. So it's a special day. I'm so proud and thankful, Steve, for your help this year, and hope you'll sign up. I have flyers on the tables and also out at the lobby. Thank you.
That's a beautiful program. I donated $500 from my president's fund to support Gay's work there. I hope you'll all dig deep. You know, the most generous people are the ones who already gave, and you just keep on giving. So thank you for that. Put in an extra $100, you get to drive a backhoe. That was a joke. Sorry. Morris Chubb, Brian Franklin, come on up for a moment. They are going to talk about the Homeless Impact Committee and a hygiene kit assembly project that's going on at Block Construction. Come on up, boys.
Thank you, President Steve, and everybody for this time. We really appreciate it. I am Brian Franklin, and my co-chair, Morris Chubb, wanted to talk to you about the formerly known as Homeless Impact Committee. So I'll start with some updates, and the first one is just a rebrand. As I just mentioned, we were the Homeless Impact Committee. We are currently the newly minted Unhoused Impact Committee. As subtle of a change that sounds to the community we serve, it's a big deal. They don't necessarily consider themselves homeless, but just unhoused. So, and out of respect for them, we had officially rebranded and changed our committee name to the Unhoused Impact Committee. Next, just wanted to share some of the partnering that we've been doing. Most specifically is with regards to hygiene kits, and Morris will elaborate more on that in just a minute, but I wanted to bring that up because without our foundation, what we're doing could not be possible. So my quick plug and ask is the foundation does great work and supports all of us. If you haven't made your donation, please do. The last thing I'll touch on before I hand the mic over is just the programs. This is one of the things we're trying to do for our committee, is just to educate and bring awareness to what is happening with the unhoused folks in the area here. And what we've done is had a couple programs. Most recently was about the mental health services. And we talked about, we brought in providers. Cindy Chavez came in and talked about it, and just what is happening or lack thereof to support mental needs that these folks have, where we learned and supported Laura's Laws, which recently was enacted here upon the county. The last thing I'll mention is our upcoming event. We're going to have a couple speakers that are going to talk about the state budget and current proposed legislation that's coming down the pipe that will affect funds that are going to come to this area, and as well as statewide in terms of funding for the unhoused. So with that, Morris.
Thanks, Brian, for leaving me about 10 seconds.
Sorry.
As you can tell, whoops, what happened to our, there we go. We're having a build, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, 8:30 to 11 at Block Construction. We're going to be building kits of 24, hygiene kits. The next opportunity you have is to take one of those kits, bags home, and break them down into 24 individual hygiene kits, which is your third opportunity to accompany the Agape group led by our very own Todd Langton. He's head of that group, out and deliver these to the homeless. A word of caution, we've been suggested that we at least let you know it isn't without the possibility of encountering opposition from some of the homeless. So, but it is a wonderful thing to do, to be able to hand food and a hygiene kit to an unhoused person.
Thank you, Brian and Morris. Very briefly, we have a new COVID protocol starting next week. You need to either send a photo of your vaccination card or the QR code. That is very easy to get from the state to the office, or you can just arrive here with your card. But we'd appreciate it if you did it in advance. It'll make it much easier for the staff to get everybody into the building. You can also have valid written religious or medical exemption with a 72-hour negative test. So pay attention to that to try to make everyone's life easier next week. This was just a picture of Sean Cottle and me. Sean invited me to go sailing last week. I just wanted to show you I don't work all the time. And with that, my friend Jim Towery is going to come up and introduce today's speaker. Thank you.
All right, thank you, President Steve. For any of us who've lived in this valley for several decades, we remember the days when reading the San Jose Mercury News was a genuine pleasure. The newspaper was full of want ads, had aggressive newsrooms that were covering the county and city hall, technology reporters teaching us about the tech boom in this valley. Those were the days. So what has changed from now until then? To give us insight on the forces that have changed journalism, both locally and nationally, we have the ideal speaker today, Jim Bettinger, the Director Emeritus of the John S. Knight Journalism Fellowship Program. After graduating from UCSB, Jim went to work as a reporter for the Riverside Press Enterprise and then came to the San Jose Mercury News. He spent about 20 years as a journalist working for these two papers. At the Mercury, he rose through the editorial ranks, being city editor and ultimately editor of politics and government. Jim left the newspapers when he was hired to be the deputy director of the John S. Knight Journalism Fellowship Program. And in case you don't know much about this, I didn't know about this before starting this introduction, let me describe in brief what this program is like. It is unique nationally. It brings about 20 journalists each year, not freshly minted journalists just out of journalism school, but rather practicing journalists who've been around the block a few times. It brings them to Stanford. It supports them for a year, gives them a stipend. It allows them to take whatever courses at Stanford they choose to take. And although the program initially started as kind of a sabbatical for journalists, it evolved into an entity that was doing projects to improve journalism both locally and nationally. just to give you, and internationally. And to give you one example of that, Jim will describe for us a program that the Knight Fellowship did in 2014 of supporting the role of women journalists in Afghanistan. Very curious about what is happening to that today. Jim retired from the Knight Fellowship program in 2016. He moved to Santa Rosa to be close to a grandchild, a very good motivation. He continues to lecture, write, and consult on various subjects pertinent to journalism. So please join me in welcoming Jim Battinger.
Well, I hope I can justify that introduction. Can you hear me? Okay. So I want to emphasize that even though I live in Santa Rosa, that my San Jose roots are deep. My grandparents moved to San Jose in the mid-20s. My father grew up in a house on North White Road, just north of Alum Rock, across from what is now James Lick High School when it was just a field. My first experience with the Mercury News, it was in the Mercury, or as my parents call it, the Mercury, was reading it at my grandparents' house. San Jose has always been a very special place to me, and as Jim mentioned, I worked for the Mercury News from 1984 to '89. It has a special place in my heart. I think that the most important thing to know about the Mercury News currently is that it is not owned by people who care deeply about newspapers. It is owned by Alden Global Capital, which owns about 200 newspapers. When I was growing up, the Ritters owned the Ritter family owned it. Then Knight Ritter came in, but Tony Ritter was the publisher, followed by Bill Ott, followed by Larry Jenks, followed by Jay Harris. All people who cared deeply about newspapers as a community entity. Larry Jenks used to say that the one thing that united people in Santa Clara County was the fact that they got the Mercury News. And that has changed things. That has changed drastically. We all used to get our news sort of in aggregation and with sort of an appointment mentality. You got a morning newspaper or an afternoon newspaper. You got the evening news. You got your news magazine, and all came, and they were assembled to be to be consumed at a certain time, and that's drastically changed, obviously, and not for the worst. I mean, I can go online and go to ESPN and find the Giants scores, and at any time I want to do that. But that has changed how people consume their news. I think so. I'm going to give you 3 anecdotes about the Mercury News, which were disturbing to me, and this is from when I was living in Palo Alto. The first was getting a postcard that said that if I wanted to continue subscribing, I had to agree to mandatory arbitration on any subscription dispute. And I thought, what is this all about? I mean, how many subscription disputes could there be that you'd have to do this? And I wrote to the paper, and I got an answer, sort of anguished, from the publisher, which said, well, the lawyers said we had to do this. I said, boy, those are lawyers with too much time on their hands. Okay. Second, I had signed up for, what's the right word? The mandatory subscription, not mandatory subscription, but, like regular subscription. And I said, could the Mercury News send me a bill in advance so I know what I'm paying? And boy, I know the answer was, after a lot of exchanges, no, they couldn't. And the third was, they couldn't get the late baseball scores in. And I was thinking, this is not the paper that Larry Jenks ran, that Tony Ritter ran, and so on. And it was very frustrating, because I worked for the paper for 5 years, loved working at the paper most of the moments, and it was an indication to me that it was not focused on the kinds of things that I thought a newspaper should be focused on. So there's several things going on there, and I'm gonna tout this book, which covering politics in the age of Trump, which is edited by Jerry Seppos, who was the executive editor of the Mercury News. It's a really good book about the challenges of journalism in the Trump and post-Trump era. So some things that have gone on in journalism that you all may be aware of, but I'll recount. The democratization of the news media has meant that advertising and circulation has fallen way off. So when we're in the let me look. I got these figures here. So advertising has fallen from about 16.5 billion down to it's down from about 50 million in 2007 to about 16 million. The reality of newspapers and television, for that matter, is that advertising pays the bills. We used to have a sort of a rule of thumb that what subscribers pay for the newspaper pays for the paper, the ink, and advertising pays for everything else. There was a department store owner in Philadelphia named Sam Wanamaker, and he used to say that, I know that half my advertising is wasted. I just don't know which half. With the internet, they can tell which half. And that has really changed how newspapers operate, because circulation drives advertising. When circulation drops, advertising drops, and so the Mercury News is a shadow of its former self because of that. so those are kind of the economic parts of it. And then I won't, well, I'm going to go to questions in a couple of minutes. The Trump presidency has accentuated differences that were already there, and made it extremely, and has made it very hard, I would say, for journalists who were who were focused on being objective, fair, even-handed, because of the it made it very hard because the Trump and the Trump people were totally not focused on that at all. I've got just a couple of minutes here, and then I want to open to questions. But the willingness of Trump and his people to label journalists as enemy of the people, as fake news, was unprecedented and has just changed the terms of engagement. So back to the Mercury News. I do want to say that I have high regard for the journalists there. Bert Robinson is one of the finest journalists I've ever known. There are really good people working there and doing good work. It is hard to do good work without resources. One of the things that I was lucky when I was at the Mercury News, lucky to have is extraordinary resources. And I don't want to at all denigrate the work that's being done there. There's really good people there. But it's a tough slog. With that, I'll just be glad to try and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jim. First question, Norm Holberg.
I also mourn the loss of a great newspaper as a more than half-century subscriber to the Mercury News. But here's my question. I also mourn the drop in objective journalism. What three publications would you say you have most respect for, that not just Podunk, Iowa, but a national scope? What three publications would you say you have a good respect for?
Well, so I'm an old guy, so I get 4 newspapers a day. I get the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, the San Francisco Chronicle, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. I want to say this also. So the Press Democrat was owned by the New York Times and then bought by Halifax Media, and then about 8 years ago bought by a local consortium. And it's actually a really, really good local newspaper. I was tickled to find out how good it was. You see, like how can I say this? It covers the out of local news, and I don't know. So anyway, so it's an example of what a local news operation can be. I think the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal are really good. When I was in Palo Alto and I could buy it, I would buy the Financial Times on Saturdays because their weekend section was really good. I don't think you can, you know, I think those publications are very good. I find my wife and I disagree about MSNBC. I find it sort of tendentious. She likes it a lot. I don't read The Economist, but people that I respect like The Economist a lot. So,
Gay, before you go, Jim Towery is going to ask a question, and then we'll come back to you. Also, a reminder, Red Badgers, you get to go to the front of the line on questions, so please come on up. But that will be after Gay, but it's Jim's turn.
First of all, I'd like to remind everybody, if you have questions for Mr. Bettinger, please put them in the chat, whether you're remote or here. That way we can filter them. One question that I have for you, Jim, is there have been a number of localities that have started, won't call them alternative newspapers, but smaller newspapers. One example is San Jose Spotlight. I think there are community-based newspapers in San Diego and Seattle. Do you have much hope that these can replace the role that traditionally was played by the major dailies like the Mercury News?
They can't replace the role of plays like the Mercury News or the San Diego Union Tribune. They don't have the institutional power that that those institutions had. I mean, when the Mercury News was strong, Joe Ritter, Tony Ritter, I mean, it was a great community force. And those publications can provide a lot of very good coverage. But man, the Mercury News was just a force in San Jose. And there's just no way that the smaller publications can replace that. And that's a loss of institutional force. I mean, Joe Ritter did really not great things, but he was a force in San Jose. And Tony Ritter was a force in San Jose. And there's no way that those smaller publications can replicate that.
And my question is a little bit along that line. I mean, I'm also a subscriber since 1968, and just the travesty of seeing the paper shrink, the font get, of course, my eyes are failing too, but anyway, and seeing the online versions. My question, I guess, has to do with the Bay Area News Group now owns all these local papers, the Saratoga News, Los Gatos, and it's just junk. And if you read next door, people are complaining about it. Is there any way we can bring back those local papers?
No. I mean, I wish there were, but the economic forces are such that they just can't be replicated. At the time I was at the Mercury News, one of the great economic engines was the classified advertising, and that just went away. It went to Craigslist. And I wish it's so. Okay. The only way they could come back well would Silicon Valley consortium that decided to buy the Mercury News and just put a ton of resources into it. And I don't see that happening. The Silicon Valley people that I've talked to, I haven't talked about this much, but when I've talked to them, they're like, why would we put money into a newspaper? So I'm not hopeful about that.
Carl Salas.
Jim, I was and I am really excited for your comments, and I was really glad you finally said something positive at the end about people that are working. I've been a subscriber since '74, but you also just in the last minute said, yeah, well, nobody's going to put any money into the newspapers. I still love the newspaper. I love that we have the Mercury, and as much as I kind of agree it's just a business group that has it, thank goodness we have the Mercury. And I guess I'm looking for, if our local papers can't make it, the Mercury is there. Is there something that they could do, those couple of great people there that could help bring the community together? It'll never be the force it was because of where we're at right now, but it could be a force. In fact, about 3 days ago, Sal took a political position. Sal Pizarro took a political position. I had never heard him, and I thought it was pretty cool. Anyway, just maybe comment that and maybe in a little more positive and hopeful step forward other than, well, it's going to just go away anyway, so why bother?
Well, I mean, so there's two models that right now are pretty good. One is the Press Democrat, which I mentioned, but the Press Democrat is a media consortium that owns the Press Democrat, the Petaluma paper, the Sonoma paper, Sonoma Magazine, the North Bay Business Journal. So it's got some synergy. The other is that is the Chronicle, San Francisco Chronicle, which is privately owned and it bled money for a number of years. At one point it was bleeding $1 million a week, but they kept putting resources into it, and they did. The challenge at the Mercury News is it's owned by a hedge fund whose track record, I won't say it's not exactly going to happen this way, but whose track record is bleeding stuff dry. And there would have to be, I wish I could be more optimistic. I honestly do. But there's nothing in Alton Global Capital that suggests that it's really interested at all in focusing growth of the newspaper. It would, as I say, it would take a group of investors, and there is precedent. So what Bezos did with the Washington Post, who said, okay, I'm going to buy this because I think it's really important, and I'm going to put money into it. There was a period there, in the last 10 years, where when most other newspapers were contracting, Bezos was putting money in to grow the journalistic capacity. But it'll take something like that. And one of the very frustrating things is that as readers, as consumers, there's not a ton we can do about that.
Yeah, Andrew Bales, this will be the last question from the audience. And Jim, if you can keep your answer as brief as possible, I'd appreciate it. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to skip to your time with the Knight Foundation and the programs that they're doing. I heartily endorse the idea of giving the journalists a chance to sort of move on to what's next. And I guess my question to you is, you create a cadre of journalists who are sort of refreshed and ready to go forward. Where do you think they're working in 20 years? Is there a future for what that program is doing for those people?
Yes, there is. And I will keep this brief. I'm sorry. The answer is that what we tried to imbue in people was a capacity for regeneration. So that after a year, when they were not quite, after a year, they could reinvent themselves. I'm sorry about my lengthy answers.
All right, this will be the final question. First of all, I want to read a comment from one of the Rotary members. The comment is, quote, "I want to offer kudos to those reporters and editors who retain the passion to provide news and investigative reporting despite the conditions that you described." That's from Robin Doran, and several people have agreed with that. The final question is from me, and Jim, would you just describe briefly what the Knight Fellowship did in Afghanistan? Thank you.
So, I mentioned this to Jim this morning. So we had a woman who had worked for Reuters, as I recall, in Afghanistan, and she created a program called Sahar Speaks, which trained women journalists in Afghanistan to work for Western publications. And it's obviously in danger now, but it's the kind of thing that we like to see our fellows do.
Thank you, Jim. I'm going to share a quick anecdote of my own before we wrap up. So one of my dear friends is a guy named Rich Shanin. Rich wrote for the Mercury News for maybe 30 years. I think he was one of the finest journalists in America. He wrote about religion for 10 years or so, and then he was their jazz and classical music columnist critic. I'm sure Andrew Bales knows Rich well, but really an incredible writer. He's an encyclopedic knowledge about music. And right near the end before he retired, he was reassigned to cover real estate. So I just wanted to mention that. That being said, I wanted to thank Jim Bettinger again. Jim, we will be making a donation in your name to Sahar Speaks. With that, I'd like to remind you all that next week we've got a program without a note here, sorry about that. Coach Brennan from San Jose State talking about San Jose State football next week, and all of you, please show up. Thanks. Thank you, Jim.